Together we learn, together we grow, together we heal, together we flow. Be cool, every teacher, every school. 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 Be cool, every teacher, every school.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Todd Scholl. I serve as the lead learner for the Center for Educator Wellness and Learning. We call ourselves CEWL, and you can learn more about our initiative at CEWL at CEWL.us. That's CEWL.us. You can learn all about the different things we do to help support the inner and outer lives of educators here in South Carolina, including things like CEWL Coaching, which started this week and will continue on through the year. And we'll talk a little bit more about that after tonight's live stream. And we do live streams like the one you're going to see tonight. And we're really excited to bring you a cool conversation with three really important people at the SCEA. Dena Crews is the SCEA's president, our new president. We have Dee Murph, who is our member advocate, and Al Nickles, who is the SCEA attorney. And tonight we're going to be talking about your rights as an educator. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the Educator Assistance Act, which has created a little bit of confusion, and we just want to help clear up some of that confusion. And we will take your questions. So if you're watching tonight and you have questions about any of the topics where we bring up, about anything within the Educator Assistance Act or anything else, we have three experts that are going to be with us tonight who can help answer those questions for you, because the SCEA is here not only to help our members, but to help every educator in South Carolina understand what his or her rights are. So without further ado, let's bring on Dee Murph, Dena Crews, and Al Nickles. Thanks so much for being here tonight. We appreciate you being here and sharing your expertise. Is there anything you would like to share with listeners about yourself? We'll start with Dena, our new president.
Well, good evening, everyone. I am Dena Renee Crews. I am a literacy coach from Florence One Schools, and I am proud and honored to serve the members of the South Carolina Education Association. And I thank you all for joining us tonight.
And Dee?
Hi, I'm Dee Murph, and I am the help desk member advocate. I'm retired educator, 36 years in the profession before I decided to retire officially, and love working at the SCEA, and hopefully we can release some anxiety from our members tonight regarding this bill.
Al?
Yes, good evening, everyone. It's a privilege to be participating with you in this important program. I have been an attorney affiliated with the SCEA for over 40 years. I know you can't believe that looking at me, but that is the case. And I have had the opportunity to observe some of the changes that have taken place in the education field during that period of time, and hope that I can add a little bit of insight into this legislation that we're talking about this evening.
Thanks so much, Al. And thanks, Dee and Dena, for your time tonight. Let's start with, there's a couple of big sort of issues that there have been a lot of questions about. The first one that I'd like to bring up is the 2 days of professional development that educators are supposed to, 2 days of free of professional development that educators are supposed to get so that they can get their classroom set up before the year starts. And I think there's been a little bit of confusion about that. So any one of you who has some thoughts on clarifying that so that educators know like exactly what it is that they should expect from their school or district?
Well, one of the things, I was excited, first of all, that teachers were going to get 2 days of no meetings, no getting to know yous, no sign this paper, sign that paper, but 2 days where they could just spend in their classrooms, getting their desk in order, looking over their rosters, and going on ahead and trying to plan for their upcoming school year. I was excited about it. I was confused why there was confusion. So this is a question I'm going to ask y'all tonight. How many days are in our weekend? How many days are we off?
2.
Okay, 2 days. So when we heard as teachers, classroom teachers and support staff, when we heard 2 days, in our minds, we thinking kind of like the weekend.
That's right.
We're going to have a Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, or Thursday, Friday.
Right.
But it's going to be 2 days. Some kind of way. The 2 days went into chunks of days, a piece on Monday, 2 pieces on Wednesday, and it's not supposed to be a 2-piece snack. It's supposed to be 2 days.
Right.
The State Department did send guidelines, and I was thankful when we received that paper so that way we could share it out with our members as well as administrators who may not have known. They may have said, you know what, it's 2 days. Yes. I got a lot of stuff I got to get done with my staff before school starts. I'm going to give it to them however I can. But even the State Department sent out, it could be 2 full days or 1 full day and then 2 half days. So they gave some specifications. Now, a lot of educators, they were sending us their calendars. I want my 2 days. I want my 2 days.
Right.
It's now over. We are now in the throes, so to speak, of the school year. Right. And we want to extend grace because this was the first time. So now that our administrators, our superintendents know what to expect for the next school year, when July comes and everybody's getting their back to school calendar, seeing what their first week look like, it should be either 2 days together or two days or 1 whole day and 2 half days. But it shouldn't be kibbles and bits of days.
Right.
Okay, Al, I also was a little confused. I was just getting a lot of calls, a lot of emails. And so I always go to my go-to guy, and that's Al, because he knows the law backwards, forwards. So I asked him to look at it. And it was so brand new, I don't think Al had even had a chance to look at it. So Al, would you elaborate some more on your opinion and as reading the law?
Well, first of all, I understand from the materials that Ms. Hipp has presented and from conversations with you, Dee, that the State Department of Education has taken the position that 2 days can be divided into half days. And I think what Ms. Hipp says, or Dr. Hipp says, is it means 1 full day and 2 half days. I don't see that in the statute. Statutes are to be read coherently. And in the statute that addresses this free time or development time or preparation time, it uses days consistently to mean a school day, a work day. And it does not say in the statute, let's say, 2 sessions of half days or anything like that. It says.
Uh-oh. We lost Al. Let's pivot though. Like Michael from, I believe he's from Horry County. He says that guidelines are no guidelines. I think many individual schools lack direction and interpreted the 2-day requirement however they wanted. I believe that in the comments, Caleb has putting a link to a memo, and I want to give a shout out to Mary Hipp, because Mary Hipp from the State Department did respond and provide us with some pretty thorough responses, and those will be on our website, and Caleb will put those those answers on our website to explain in a really thorough way exactly what the State Department's response is to some of these issues. So Al, you were in the middle of something, you got cut off. Let you finish. You were talking about the interpretation of a day. You're muted. You're muted, Al. Al, you're muted.
I don't think
There you
so.
go. There you go. You're back.
Well,
You're good now. You're good.
I'm not.
Yeah, I can hear
Am
you.
I back?
Yes.
I'm good.
Yes.
Okay. All right. All right. If you can hear me, I hope the other listeners or observers can hear me.
Mm-hmm.
What I was attempting to say is that the statute uses the word day consistently. And even in this particular subsection of the statute, it uses the word day multiple times to refer to school days. And school days and work days are the same thing for teachers. Now, instructional days are different, but the statute says at least 2 days must be designated as staff work days for the preparation of the opening of schools. Now, it doesn't say a certain number of hours must be provided or that the days can be segregated. It says days. Now, excuse me, the State Department believes otherwise, and they're going to tell the districts.
I think we've lost Al again. I think his internet service might be a little slow tonight. Dena, let's talk a little bit before we pivot to another topic. And you kind of alluded to this earlier, but I think Al's talking about like the interpretation of the statute, but like help explain why this is so important to educators, why this is something that we're advocating for from the perspective of a classroom educator.
When I was a classroom teacher, prior to the school year beginning, before that week that we returned, many of us showed back up the week before that just to get our classrooms ready, because we knew that we were going to be in either district professional development or school level professional development. And there wasn't going to be time for us to be in our classrooms, to put our desk in order, to go over our rosters, to go on ahead and plan where students are going to sit, to get our materials ready for the beginning of the school year, go through textbooks, put labels on textbooks, and for me at the elementary level, assigning cubbies and things of that sort, just to get ready. And then also knowing that prior to the school year starting, we do have open school, the Meet the Parent nights that we encourage every parent, for one, to participate in, because it's important to meet your child's teachers and assistants. But we needed that time to prepare for all of that. So having these 2 days was so valuable and important. When I think about how much time teachers give of their summer, right, that's already short for some of us that are on a modified calendar, that we're coming in on time that is not paid for, just to be able to prepare for our students, because we want our house in order before our babies come to us. So having these 2 days is so important, so that way our educators can be as well prepared as they can be. Things, of course, come up, but for us to have 2 days where we can get ahead of the game is so valuable and important. And I saw in the chat where someone mentioned about their support staff not being included. And the law, it says in here, on these days, teachers and instructional assistants must be afforded time that is self-directed and free from assigned meetings or training in order to evaluate student academic data and to plan and prepare instructional materials in classroom spaces for the start of the school year. So it's not just the classroom teacher. The instructional assistants need to be there also. So that's not a time for the classroom teacher to be in the room getting things together and the instructional assistants being pulled to be in a meeting or to do other duties. to help prepare for the beginning of the school year, which is important for everybody. But having these 2 days where a teacher and their classroom assistant can go on ahead, work together to prepare for their students, it's valuable, and it's something that teachers really been crying out for years. We've all said, we need time in our rooms. We need time in our rooms. And either we were coming before our official school year started, or we were staying late.
Yeah.
Just to get things prepared and in order.
And I think a lot of educators in South Carolina, I think some, especially those who are members of the SCEA or have come from a union state, they understand, like, we're not here to do unpaid labor. Like, we should be paid for the time that we're putting in. If you're gonna keep us busy all day with professional development, and meetings and things like that throughout the days that the district has put in as work days before the year, and then it's Friday at 4:00, and I haven't had time to organize my room or get my things ready, and now I'm coming, like you said, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday,
and the weekends.
I'm not getting paid for any of that. So this is like trying to treat our profession as a profession, which is, we do work, we get paid for it. It's not, we're not coming in to do volunteer work like that. Right. I mean, unless that is something you want to do. So just getting away from that. And I think it gives me a little bit of glimmer of hope that we're starting to see that we've been taken advantage of in a lot of ways. And we need to kind of put our foot down here and there to ensure that we're being paid for the work that we do.
And I'm just glad that our legislators heard the voices of the teachers and support staff to say, hey, they have to prepare for their 20 plus kids that are coming. When do they do that?
Yeah.
We need to build within their contracted time for them to do that work, because it is a part of the preparation for the school year. So it shouldn't be something that educators have to do after school hours or on the weekends. Afford them the time during their contracted time to be able to do that.
Yeah. And it's in certain states, it's really frowned upon to be going into school on the weekends or to be staying late. I mean, because you have collectively bargained for the right to, work a certain number of hours and be paid for those hours, not to give all this extra time and excuse it as other duties as assigned. What are you hearing from members across the state? We've heard a couple of tonight. Are you hearing from various people that these 2 days that they're not really being honored in a variety of places, or is this sort of sporadic?
Yes, of course. And once they get me on the phone, they keep me on the phone for a number of minutes, but I don't mind, because I truly understand. I didn't know what 2 days of free away from all this other stuff. It was non-existent when I taught. But I will say, once that was done, we didn't do it all year. We didn't come on the weekends all year to prepare for school. We had our groups of teachers who we went out. We had a good time. So yes, that first part of the year is hectic, and first week. But we didn't do that all year now, because we have families and we have to be with our families. So I know that's important. But a lot of the frustration from members, especially, is that not only did they not get the 2 days, but their unencumbered time. That is the law also. They're not getting those 30 minutes. And that is disheartening. That makes me sad, because they're supposed to be getting 30 minutes uninterrupted break. Like, if I just want to sit there and stare into the wall, I should be able to do that. That's not happening. So I know that the SEAs is going to have to go back to the legislators and say, how are we going to fix this problem? Because 2 days is one thing, but all year,
right?
You have some teachers who aren't getting those 30 minutes per day. But yes, a lot of frustration, because once we say as an organization it's the law and people aren't abiding by that law, then they want to know, how our members want to know how we're going to fix it. And so, yes, had a lot of calls, a lot of frustration from members.
What are, and any of you can answer this question. So if I'm an individual educator or support staff in a district and they're not following this, I know you said we want to try to give them grace as we're all trying to figure out how to interpret it this year. And it's too, right now, we can't time travel back and fix it. But as we move forward into next year, what is it that an individual educator can do if their district continues to not honor what the statute is saying?
Well, I really actually spoke to a member just yesterday. Actually, I spoke to the member's mother, who was a retired teacher, because she was so afraid that her daughter would be retaliated against or targeted if she called to complain about the unencumbered time, that she didn't want to give me her daughter's name. Now that's not okay. But as I explained to the mom, we have to know where it's happening. We don't have to know the name of the teacher, but we need to know the name of the school so that we can at least go in and say, listen, we've heard that teachers aren't getting their unencumbered time, and we need to maybe come together and see how this can be remedied, because, as Al said, you are in violation of the law. But if we don't know where it is and when it's happening, then we really can't do anything to enforce it.
Al or Dena, do you have any thoughts on that?
Gentle reminders, especially when at the beginning of the school year, principals send out the schedule for what the first week is going to look like. And it could just be a gentle reminder with a question. Just say, hey, I thought I heard the legislators said that we're supposed to have 2 days of planning. Where is that within the schedule? And it is the hope that the admins will then go back and do the right thing. This isn't something that legislators or us, that we want superintendents to have to micromanage, where they're having administrators having to turn in their schedules to make sure that things are happening. We want to trust the professionalism of everyone in the building that they're going to do it. We know from being in the school setting, there's a lot that has to be done prior to the school year starting. We know that, but we also know that if our teachers and support staff are better prepared for their students coming in, the better the school year can start off for everybody. And some of those other things, some of the meetings about some logistical things that don't need to take place on the first day, all of that can come in time. But there's nothing like having that classroom ready for students on the first day of school and not still trying to figure out everything.
Right.
But I wanted to go back to the unencumbered time real quick, because I went to what the law says. And I already made an error about something else, and we'll get to that. But it says each local school board shall use to develop and implement a plan that directs the principal of each elementary school to provide at least 30 minutes of unencumbered time on each regular school day. The policy shall also direct the principal of any elementary, middle, or high school to provide at least 30 minutes of unencumbered time on each regular school day. So what I have been hearing is there have been some creative scheduling going on with unencumbered time being from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. And that's not the regular school day. And it's unfortunate that we can't have in our contracts the specific hours that we work. In my district, we had it in our policy. We wanted to put it in our contracts, but because of a state law or something, whatever, we couldn't do that. Because I think if we could do that, we would be able to say, okay, my school day starts at 7:35. If you want me to come at 7 o'clock for my unencumbered time, that's not the school day. That's my time.
Right.
if that's the case, let me take my unencumbered time at the house, and I'll see y'all at 7:30.
Mm-hmm. And
But it's supposed to be in between, in the middle of it, during the day. The intent behind it is because educators haven't been able to use the restroom without somebody having to come and cover their class.
Right.
If you have them coming at 7 in the morning, what's going to happen at 11?
Right. Well,
Somebody's going to have to come and cover their class. Just do right. It does take some creative scheduling. You might have to utilize other staff members to cover lunch duties, but follow the law and remember what it was like when you were in that classroom, in that situation. Our educators are getting the things that we wish that we had.
Right.
I have 25 years, and I know Dee has a little bit more than me, but we didn't have the 2 days within our week to prepare. We didn't have unencumbered time. Nope. We sat with our kids during lunch. If we needed to use the restroom and there wasn't a planning period or something coming up, it was about, Johnny, go next door and ask them to step outside so they can watch these 2 classes because I got to go. Yeah. So we're trying to make things better for those who are coming after us, but we need everybody on board with it for it to work.
I think that's a really good point, and it kind of ties into what Dee was saying earlier about people being scared. Like if my unencumbered time is being taken from me, or if these 2 days aren't really being honored, am I, and I'm the only one in my school who's speaking up about it, am I going to be retaliated against? What's going to happen in terms of how I'm going to be viewed by my administration as a troublemaker? And I think this is particularly intimidating for our early career educators who are going in there and trying to be a team player and prove themselves. And they're also, I think a lot of educators have a very compliant mindset because we're enforcing rules. We want, and then
we do, right? But we also, why can't everybody just do right?
Right.
Why can't we all just do right? It shouldn't be about retaliation. And why are we retaliating against people who just want the rights that they were given? Our legislators are listening to us, and they're giving us things that we've been asking for years. And now that we're getting it, let's all be on board with making sure that it happens and that it's done well. Why can't we do that? Why can't we just do right? And that it's not a gotcha. And it's not a gotcha. It's, I know this is what I'm supposed to get and I'm not giving it. Give it to me.
Yes.
It's not a gotcha. It's not I'm trying to get after you or anything for there to be this retaliation. We're supposed to be about educating our babies, our children, to grow them up. No one has time for retaliations. Only thing we should have time for is doing what's best for our students in our building and doing what's best for the educators and support staff that's helping our babies. And that's it.
Absolutely. I'd like to shift to the other question that I've heard come up a lot and confusion around certification. We've heard a couple of different things. I think maybe it was due to the different iterations of the bill that went through, and then there's this final version. Can we talk a little bit about certification, changes to certification, and clear up some of the common misconceptions there?
Okay, I'll go on ahead and speak because this is where my error was. So folks out there in Facebook land, there aren't any permanent certificates. Let me say it again for those in the back of the room. South Carolina does not have a permanent teacher certificate. I thought it was permanent too. This is like the game of telephone where everybody's saying saying one thing and then it gets translated into something else. The law says it's lifetime. So I guess we making synonyms. We said lifetime is permanent. Dr. Mary Hip said it does not say permanent. It says lifetime. So we're going, Dena's going to use the right word, lifetime. It is not permanent.
Okay.
Although we're making that association, because if it's lifetime, we thinking it's permanent, because our lifetime, when we gone, we might be no longer here, so it won't be permanent. So anywho, so I done cleared up my part, and I'm gonna let Dee and Al take it from here.
Okay.
Well, I've talked, so I'll let Al do a little bit with the certification.
Al?
Well, I have to confess, I didn't follow that completely. My technology here is just allowing me to hear parts of what is being said, and I apologize for that. If the question is on the certification as to permanence, impermanence, recertification, so forth and so on, I have to tell you that that's not a legal issue that I generally encounter. My responsibilities have been with regard to certification is defending those teachers whose certifications have been challenged. So I don't want to call it day to day, but the general issues as to certification are those that have been addressed more often to the staff and with referral to the experts in the State Department of Education. I, of course, am generally familiar with certification criteria, but I am not familiar with the controversy that's been, I guess, surrounding the Education Assistance Act. So I'd have to pass on that question to someone with a greater depth of knowledge.
Well, I will say what I think happens most of the time is that whether they be SCEA members or whether they're not SCEA members, oftentimes we're not, and I say we because, I was a little fledgling too, and I was ready to work and I was just ready to sign that contract. But we have to understand what our certificate area is. If we're an annual, if we're continuing, we have to understand those terms and we have to ask questions. My go-to were the older teachers. Long time ago when I started teaching, teachers had a ward certificate. That's unheard of now, but they did, that was issued. So if you have an annual contract, there are certain limitations to your procedural rights. If you're continuing, then there are certain parameters that you still have to follow. But we have to look at board policy. It outlines what it means to be an annual, professional, continuing teacher with, contract. It explains it all. We have to take that time. I even mentioned to our communications person here that, have those meetings with your colleagues and go over your board policy. And if you don't understand it, find someone who does. And so that if you have an issue and you're a continuing contract teacher, it outlines what your grievance procedures are and the protocol for that. So understanding what your role is, what the limitations to your contract are. If you're in at-will status, like most retirees, if we go back into the teaching situations, it doesn't matter. We're still at will. Okay, so if we don't understand what that termination means, it's usually written in your contract. You have to read that contract thoroughly. And if there's something that you don't understand, you're a member of the SCEA, that's when you call and you say, okay, what does this mean? If I don't understand it, I'm going to call one of the attorneys for sure, or I'm going to go to our president or our executive director. But we'll get those questions answered for you. But we can't just sign the contract and not understand what that designation is: annual, professional, continuing, or support staff. So just understand what you're before you sign.
I wanted to read about this certification issue from what Mary Hipp of the State Department sent to us, and hopefully this will clarify some things. We had a question. One of the questions was, I became recertified in June 2024. Do I have to recertify again in 2029 to gain the permanent certificate? And how she responded, she said, educators holding a professional certificate must continue to renew that credential every 5 years.
Yes.
Educators who have retired or are approaching retirement should review the Retired Educator Certificate webpage. And that is where, if you read that, and I put I put the link to the Retired Educator Certificate in the comments on Facebook here. And that is where it seems like you can kind of get a longer renewal there. Like it's like that like once you've applied for that and received that Retired Educator Certificate, that you can kind of avoid some of this recertification. Is that true, or am I misinterpreting that?
No, that's the one. It in the law, because I'm back on the law again. It says lifetime retired educator certificate. So for those of us still in the throes of it all, we still have to get recertified, but it's just different with how we get that certification. But for the lifetime, which isn't permanent, okay, it's lifetime retired. So, those two words together, lifetime and retired, but you have to apply for the lifetime retired certificate. And if you want to keep it, well, let me just read what it says, because I'm trying to.
And I think this is probably just an attempt to try to bring some retirees back into the pool of educators.
Well, there are the retirees I used to work with, they had a retired certificate. And from what they said, I've never seen where they've had to go through a recertification process. They just had it. But I guess with this one, it allows you to be able to go back into the classroom and teach. But when you do retire, you do have to apply, and there are certain criteria and eligibility for that, and it's on the website. But for those who want the lifetime retired, it's a lifetime credential that can be maintained every 5 years upon request without meeting renewal requirements. But you have to keep asking for it. It has to be maintained. It's not, really a one and done.
But it looks like it's a little bit easier of a
you don't have to take it all the 120 hours.
That's right.
You can just say, hey, I want it again.
Yeah. So my dad was 75 and still teaching here in South Carolina. And they were like, you need to recertify. This was back in the early 2000s. And he said, I'm not recertified. I've been teaching for 50 years. I'm not going through that. I'm not needing 120 more hours, more whatever. I'm not doing it again. So I think this is kind of like for educators like that who've just, who've been retired, and they're trying to get these folks back in the classroom because we still have, vacancies across the state. We still have a recruitment issue, retention issue. Can we get some of these retirees to come back in and just tell them, hey, look, I know that was a pain in the butt. We're going to kind of make that process a little bit easier for you so that hopefully they'll stay on a little longer. I mean, that's kind of seems like the intent behind it.
Yeah. Yes. And I also think, the confusion between lifetime and permanent. I think we want a permanent certificate.
Yes.
No, we really don't.
Continuing contract teachers, for those of us who want to continue to grow and get better, we're taking the courses.
Right.
We're doing the professional development. But the every 5 years, 120 mandatory hours, I think in our mind when we got what, you know, we heard and we just got so excited about some of the heaviness coming off of it. We just jumped right ahead and thought it was permanent. So legislators, next on the agenda, a permanent certificate for continuing contract teachers
Yes.
until we retire, and then the lifetime retired. I'm just going to go on ahead and throw that out there since we've been saying permanent all this time. So, you know, next year we can use the right terminology.
Right, because it does feel like, and for those who've been in the profession long enough here in South Carolina, it does feel like you're kind of jumping through hoops every 5 years. You're scrambling to go, okay, let me pull these certificates together of things that I've done. Let me just make sure all my, you know, safe schools things have been printed out, or whatever, you know, whatever you've done to try to meet that 120. And then you're like, oh gosh, I'm 30 short, and you scramble to do stuff and it's not necessarily relevant. You know, and we've had all the Read to Succeed stuff that's been thrown in there with it. It's just, it creates another layer of bureaucracy, I think, for educators to have to deal with when they need to be focused on the students. And I, like you said, it was a wonderful point, Dena. Educators that I know are going out and improving their craft in ways that they need to, and that's what we should be encouraging, is providing them resources to help them improve their craft. And then rewarding them for that, because there's some more unpaid time, because I have to go out and get these renewal points, and they're not always necessarily on. I'm not being paid to go do these things, and in some cases, I'm having to pay for the courses.
Yes.
Right. And especially for when it was a requirement that you had graduate coursework. And if you were in a district where they didn't have a partnership with one of the local colleges or universities where you could get the course for like $100 or something, that's a lot of money to come out of pocket.
Yeah. So I just wanted to, as we get close to the end of our time here, are there any other issues that were in the Educator Assistance Act, or any other issues that are kind of hot right now that we're hearing a lot about that we need to clarify for members and educators and support ESPs across the state? Anything else?
Well, this is Al. Al, can you hear me?
Mhm.
One of the issues that Dee and I have had to encounter on multiple occasions is, how can a teacher get out of his or her contract? And of course, we've had the specter of 1 year of suspension of a license if someone chooses to leave employment during the course of the year. There have been some modifications to that law. Some deadlines have been imposed upon districts to report alleged breaches. There have been limits on the amount of time that can serve as a suspension. There is now a provision that if a suspension is imposed, it is retroactive to the date of the departure or the date of the breach. So those are some modifications. But the thing that's been really confusing is the statutory release for relocation. And that is limited to folks who move to what's called non-contiguous counties. It can't be a county that touches the county in which you work, not in which you live, but in which you work. And, you know, if you work in Lexington, Richland 5, it couldn't touch either Richland or Lexington. You'd have to go, and you have to physically move, and you have to show proof that you have already moved in order to obtain the release. So folks have been thinking, well, I'm going to move, so I'm entitled to the release. No, not the case. Or I've moved from, you know, Charleston County to Georgetown County. No, those counties touch. You're not entitled to the release. So there's some limits that I don't think are understood, and there's some paperwork that I don't think is really being handled by the members effectively. And that's something that Dee has taken the lead on, hoping to provide members a checklist of, if you're going to seek release under this statute, this is what you have to do, 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I propose is, if you are seeking a job at another district, you send that same information to the HR director of the departing district or the one in which you're currently under contract, and to the HR director of the district in which you're seeking employment. But the law is still, until you're released, you cannot sign a contract with another public school district in this state. And they cannot offer you a contract. It's actually a violation of law to offer a contract to a teacher who's under contract to another school district. So there are changes. Those changes are beneficial, but there's no get out of jail free card in the statute.
Thank you, Al. There's so many issues.
So be careful, consult with Dee, consult with the local rep. Don't just assume that because you moved around the block that you're entitled to a release from your contract.
There are so many issues for educators in South Carolina.
Yeah.
When we look at our brothers and sisters in other states who have way more rights, and a lot of them move here, and they're like, what? And I think we don't need, they don't need to try to become us. We need to try to get some of their rights here. And I think it's sometimes some of these things may seem small, but it's all these little things that add up to how is our profession being treated? And like you said, Madam President, you said, just do right? Just help, we need to be treated well, because our profession's important. And sometimes there's this look, they treat us like we're like almost like a babysitter, and we can do whatever, we can negotiate whatever, we can ask you to do whatever. And I think it's really important, and we need to applaud the legislators who are working to make the system better, to introduce bills that help make our lives better, help make our profession easier, so then we can focus on the task of educating young people. Before we sign off, any last words, Madam President or Dee?
Just be informed about your rights, and stay informed throughout the school year. If you think there's an issue and you're really feeling somewhat perplexed about it, yes, call us. And if I don't have the answer, we have great resources here, and I'm going to call Al or our other attorney, William, so that I can give you the right information, and that you can stay at your school, or if you need to leave your school, but just stay informed about the things that are happening. Be sure to vote and listen to what the candidates have to say about education. We have to do that, guys. We have to know who we're voting for and why we're voting for them. And don't vote against your interest. I mean, that's just so important.
Thank you.
And also know your board policy.
Yes.
When in my travels, when I've met people from different states who have contracts, and I was with a group from somewhere in Maryland, and the contract for their support professionals was this thick. And as I was going through it, I was seeing a lot of language that's in our board policies. Mm-hmm. So I'm appreciative that in my previous district in Florence 1, myself, superintendent, HR director, we talked about changing our contract to having some of that policy language, which gives rights to our teachers in the contract. But it's important to know what is in your board policy. So that's your homework assignment. Go through your board policy and know what it says for you.
And speak up.
Yeah, let me amplify that just very briefly, if I might amplify that. That's a extremely important point, because in our state, every contract that a teacher signs incorporates all board policy. And our Supreme Court, long ago, decided that those policies apply not only to the teacher, but to the board and to the superintendent and to the administrators, to the principal. So those, even if it doesn't say it in the contract itself, by law, those policies, as long as they are in effect, and of course they can be changed by the board, but so long as they're in effect, they are a part of the contract. And we have had cases, we've taken cases to federal court where boards tried to change their policies retroactively. And the courts have uniformly said, no, you can't do that. If you're going to make a change, you must make a change only as to the future. So know your board policy is, should be engraved in stone. And thank you for bringing that very important point up.
Well, I just want to thank all three of you for your time tonight and everything you do to advocate for educators in South Carolina and our support staff. The work that you do daily in supporting our members is really important. And Al, representing our legal interests, and Dena, your leadership is much appreciated. And thank you so much for your time and wisdom tonight, and sharing your insights on tonight's program.
And we thank all of you, because it's our kids are our future, and you are too. So we really appreciate everybody that is in a school or a classroom. Really, really appreciate you guys.
Thank you. All right, everybody. That's Dee Murph, our member advocate, Dena Crews, our president at the SCEA, and Al Nickles, the SCEA's attorney. I want to thank all three of them for sharing with us tonight. A few things I want to preview that we have coming up. You saw her tonight, but next week it's going to be one-on-one with Dena Crews. Get to know the SCEA's new president. She's going to be talking a little bit about her journey to the presidency, and also her vision for our organization during her term. If you have questions or comments for her, you can bring those and learn more about Dena and her ideas next week. That is going to be at 7 o'clock on Wednesday, August 27th. I also want to mention a couple of things about Cool Coaching. First of all, every Tuesday and Thursday night, these three incredible educators are online from 6 to 8 o'clock, ready to provide free one-on-one support for our induction teachers. So we define induction as your first 5 years in the profession. So if you're in your first 5 years of the profession and you have some questions or you need some advice, you just log on, go to cool.us/coaching, and you will be put into a breakout room, and you'll get to meet with one of these three veteran educators. You can ask them questions, bounce ideas off of them, and learn more about their experiences and how they can support you in your profession. And speaking of that, on September 3rd at 7 o'clock, we are going to have a live stream with our Cool Coaches so that you can learn more about what Cool Coaching is. That's September 3rd from 7 to 7:30. And one other thing I just wanted to mention, if you have not checked it out yet, over on TikTok and Instagram, every Wednesday night, Alex Del Castillo, who is an educator in Horry County, I think he teaches at Ocean Bay Middle School. He does cool yoga. And so you can join him for that, kind of get your chill on and kind of learn more about yoga. And he does a lot of other great content. So if you're not following us over on TikTok or Instagram, please make sure that you do that so you can get all that great content there. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. So many people checked in with us tonight. Paige, Kiana, Michael, Jeff, Rebecca, Byron, so many people, Karen, let's see, who else? Todd, Tom. Thanks to our executive director for tuning in. I'm not sure how you say this name, but I'm going to say Dacia or Dacia. Thank you for tuning in, and appreciate everybody. And Russell, so many people who tuned in, and we just appreciate you being a part of it. And the last thing I want to say, probably the most important thing, is we have these issues, and in order to move these things forward and make the profession better for educators, we have to come together. And the way to do that is to join us at the SCEA. You can do that right now at no cost, no dues until September. Go to jointhescea.org. You can sign up. You get access to folks like Dee. We have Al Nickles, an attorney on staff. You get the $3 million of liability coverage. And not only that, but you are joining not only a statewide organization in the SCEA, but you're joining the National Education Association and your local. So when you join us, you're getting 3 different memberships, not just a statewide one, but a local, a state, and a national membership. And all of those things come with benefits, and all of those things are important because if we're not advocating at all 3 levels, we're missing out on an important piece, because we know that federal law makes its way to the states, and we know what happens at the state house makes its way to your district. And of course, what happens locally in your school board and in your local administration, their policies impact you directly. So we have to be advocating at all 3 levels and organizing at all 3 levels. And only the SCEA does that here in South Carolina. So we invite you to join tonight at jointhescea.org. Well, we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 o'clock with a conversation with our president, Dena Crews. Until then, we hope you have a great start to the school year. And thanks so